A couple things to think about. Studies show that couples who get married whose ages add up to at least 50 have higher rates of marital stability, meaning he's 26 and she's 24, he's 25 and she's 25. When both ages add up to 50 or more, typically they have a lower divorce rate than those who get married at a younger age. Now, why? Well, I mean, I don't know about your grandparents, but my grandparents got married when they're like 18, 17 years old. I mean, Joseph and Mary got married when they're like 18 years old, 15, 16 years old. Well, why would that lead to divorce? Well, a couple things. One, culturally today, people tend up to mature and grow up later in life than they used to. I mean, like, for example, my grandpa, when he was like, I think 19 years old, he was already 19, 20 years old. He was already flying a plane deliberately into thunderstorms over Asia during World War II to avoid Japanese aircraft. I mean, flying behind enemy lines and dropping. I mean, dude's 20 years old. I mean, you know what I was doing when I was 20? I was like playing ultimate frisbee in college with my friends. And that guy's 20 and he's already in the World War. They grew up a lot faster than we did. And so in his generation, guys knew what to be afraid of, right? Guys were afraid of like landmines and like bombs and things like that. In our day and age, we're like afraid of asking girls out. And when those guys got home from the war, man, they were asking women out. I know one girl lived back then. She was a grandma. She wrote me a letter and she dated in the 1940s. And she said she dated for 5 years. And in a span of 5 years was given 10 marriage proposals from different men in 5 years. And that tells you what kind of quality of guys were back then. They weren't afraid of starting up marriages and families. Now, nowadays, you've got guys who are literally 32 years old and they're still living in their mom's basement playing Call of Duty, okay? You know, we're just growing up way too slowly. And so, well, why is it the divorce rate? Well, one reason also is because the part of your brain that's in charge of critical thinking, it weighs risks and consequences. It forecasts future outcomes of current behaviors, is called your dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. It's right around here. So and for a teenager, it's completely underdeveloped. So if your parents ever said to you, like, what were you thinking? That's actually the part of brain you don't have right now, so you can get back at them for that. But it's half baked. It's totally underdeveloped. In fact, I saw this a little while ago. I was at the San Diego airport, and I look at the guy next to me, the baggage claim, and he's got shorts on, and he's got, I noticed, on his left leg, on his calf, a massive tattoo of Homer Simpson, the cartoon character, in his underwear holding a can of Duff beer. You know, I kind of chuckled. Then I look over, I'm like, oh my. And he's got Maggie, he's got Bart, he's got Lisa, he's got Abu. Like, he had the entire cast of the Simpsons cartoon show permanently tattooed on his body. And you know what he's thinking, getting that thing buzzed into the tattoo part. Like, my friends are going to think I'm really funny. But like, dude, you're not thinking like one day you're going to be 35 years old and you're going to be at a picnic for work and your vice president is going to see Homer in his underwear tattooed on your leg, or a nice Homer tattoo. He couldn't see into the future. And so this is why like rental car companies won't let any of you guys get near their rental cars, because they know who's making dumb decisions behind the wheel, because the brain isn't fully matured until you're in your mid-20s. And so it won't get fully mature until you're about 24, 25 years old. And so that's when you're operating kind of with full brain capacity. And so when it comes time to discerning, is this the right girl and is this the right time to marry, you want to use optimum brain capacity. Now, this does not mean you're doomed to a bad marriage if you get married early on. I know friends who got married before they were even 20, and they've already been married for 20 years, and they're super happy. And so likewise, I know people that get married in their 30s and have had disastrous relationships. And so how do you know when the right time is for you? Because there's no number that's perfect. Well, don't decide by yourself. Don't go Lone Ranger. Make sure you are talking to people whose opinions you respect and admire. Most importantly, your parents. Mom, dad, what do you think? You think we're, at the right time? Because like I remember dating a girl in college and we really like, hey, I think this is the right time. We'd like to get married and everything. And I remember we sat down with their parents and their parents totally approved of the relationship. But the dad said, I could see marriage in your future, but he said, I'd really prefer that my daughter, finish college and finish her master's degree and then get married. And for me, it just felt like a death sentence. It's like, what? We can't get married right now. Like, I don't understand. Like, why do we have to wait another 2-3 years, whatever? But in the end, I think his wisdom really prevailed. God ended up having different plans in mind for us. So make sure to have the humility to listen to her parents, to your parents. But in the end, you must decide. Your parents can't decide for you. You can't leave it on anybody else. It has to be 100% your choice and her choice. Is this the right time? And I've had guys say to me like, but Jason, I want to marry this girl, but here's my problem. Like, I can't afford the engagement ring. And I'm like, dude, if you can't afford an engagement ring, you can't afford the wife who's going to wear that thing. Trust me, like, marriages are much more expensive than engagements are, okay? And yeah, she might be able to bring in her own source of income, whatever, that's great. But the fact is, like, are you ready for a family? I mean, my wife and I, we got pregnant, 3 weeks after we were married, and our firstborn son had so many medical problems that within the first 2 years of marriage, like, I had already spent $30,000 in medical bills on him so I could have the best doctors in the nation take care of my sick boy. And so you got to really discern, like, okay, and it doesn't mean you need to have some 6-figure budget before you get married, because, I mean, you can be poor together and happy, but you got to really be mature about this stuff. Okay, am I ready to be a provider for my family? Or is it I just want to get engaged? And I would recommend, like, don't jump into the engagement because you can't wait to get married. Some guys make this mistake and they give a girl like a promise ring kind of thing, or, hey, like, here's an engagement ring. When are we going to get married? I don't know. And I'll meet these couples. I'm like, oh, when are you guys getting married? When's the big day? And they're like, well, we don't know. I'm like, we're thinking maybe, the spring of 2029. It's like, dude, engagement is not for people who can't wait to get married. Engagement is for people who are ready to get married, okay? Because engagement is not supposed to feel like the 40 years that Moses spent wandering in the wilderness with the Israelites. No, it should be a focused period of time. 6 months, 9 months, pull the trigger, get married. Instead of like, we just can't wait to get married, so we're going to wear a ring for 2 or 3 years. I think it's a lot better to take your time, listen to people who love you, and, that time is a time to solidify your friendship. And in the end, that's what's going to sustain your marriage more than anything, is the friendship and the virtue of patience. And so practice those, and you're more likely to have a lasting marriage.